GMG. Little echo right there. GMGM. And welcome to my TED Talk. Yeah. Going to get started here in just a second, just pinning a couple of things up at the top of the space. I see ECW in the building. I see Dahlia A in the building. Thank you guys for pulling up. It's going to be an exciting space. Definitely excited to get into this topic. RWAs and, kind of the trends that are surrounding them and really the value that it brings to the space. It's something that a lot of people, some people kind of automatically click with it and they get it, and others, may need a little bit more explanation. So, of course, we like to put this stuff where people can find this information and, of course, utilize it to continue to build in this space. So, again, welcome to our Tech Talk podcast. This is a live discussion that I record here on X, where we highlight news, innovation, education, alpha, and business development in the Web3 domain and digital identity space. I am your host, Marcus, aka WinAirdrop, the founder of iHeart Domains, and we are your number one resource for unbiased Web3 and blockchain domain educational content, with over 150 Tech Talk episodes and YouTube videos produced and archived over the past 3 years. If you want to search our entire podcast archive for any prior recordings or an easy-to-read blog overview of each episode, you can easily do so at iHeartDomains.com. Or if you want to listen to any prior recordings in podcast format, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or you can go directly to techtalk.host, and you can see all of our prior episodes there as well. And again, most of our episodes, if you're trying to learn the basics, not even the basics, if you want to learn the entire world and concept and the roadmap for digital identity, blockchain, and Web3, it's been laid out over the past 3 years. So, definitely a good listen if it's something you want to catch up on. Also, speaking of, learning the space and a resource out there to kind of go from 0 to 100, one of our latest projects, Learn Web3.xyz, it is live. One of the things that we did recently change is we've made it free and accessible to all, but maybe even indefinitely. I think that's going to be the plan. So Learn Web3.xyz is an 8-module self-paced certification course for those really looking, again, to go from 0 to understanding blockchain and why certain things exist. If you're having a struggle communicating what Web3 domains are, this course will help get somebody to the point of understanding what they are and even to the point of wanting one. Actually, by the time they're done with the course instructs them on how to get one, and they'll already have one. Same thing with anything else. If you're trying to explain any concept in the space, NFTs, yield farming, DAOs, we cover it all, and I cover it all from a way that anybody can understand. So again, Learn Web3.xyz. I intend this to be, again, a public tool, so something that you could share with anyone that wants to learn the space. You could use it in your, process for onboarding. And as you guys may have seen recently, it is the center of a recent campaign that, is going to be pretty much a permanent campaign of pushing this in front of normies and influencers and entertainers and basketball players and all that stuff. Because I got them kind of connections, and I have enough love and enough dedication to seeing this platform grow and build. And I really think that it will be an extremely powerful tool, again, for onboarding. One of the things that I am looking forward to with this particular platform, so it's not just a course. So it is the course, but the course itself is expandable, meaning that I'll be able to add multiple courses to it. So the first course that you'll see on there, that 8-module course, is actually called The Fundamentals of Web3 and Digital Identity. So that's the real name. The website is learnweb3.xyz. There will be additional courses in the future, such as, building AI and agentics. There will be courses on, NFTs, on setting up a DAO, there will be pretty much courses on anything so people can dive into their own niche. So again, learnweb3.xyz, share it with a friend. And then lastly, we've got our registry is available for anyone who is looking for a cool and unique Web3 domain name. We currently own the TLDs. Among others, some of our premium TLDs are .dgen, .xchain, and .defi wallet. If any of those TLDs interest you, you can easily mint your name on either one of those by going to iHeartDomains.com, and then you'll see the buttons right there on the front screen where you can click to mint either one of your choice. And of course, these will be minted on free name, so you will own them forever, and there will be no renewals. Yeah. All right, let's get into the main topic at hand. And if anyone in the audience right now wants to come up on stage, please feel free to request a speaker role. Come up. I'd love to have some extra input into the conversation. But the main topic of today's Tech Talk is tokenization and RWAs, and why blockchain changes everything. So again, we're diving into a topic that sits right at the intersection of finance, technology, and ownership. Blockchain is rewriting the rules of how we own and build things together. And today I want to explore everything from real estate to businesses to even our Web3 domains and brand names and how they can live on chain as basically digital assets. I'm going to talk about fractional ownership. This is another concept that allows people to co-fund and co-build, and how the simple act of mirroring an asset on a blockchain can change what's possible for everyday people and for builders and for anyone, who's trying to raise capital or wants to invest in something. So think about how ownership works today in the traditional space. If you want, and this is a recent example of this, or a case study of this just recently came up with the domain techno.com. And there's a few spaces out there where you can go into kind of the situation with that. But if you and a friend or family want to co-own a building, oftentimes you need lawyers. You're definitely going to need a contract of some sort. You may need to set up some sort of legal framework like an LLC. If you want to invest in a valuable domain name or a piece of art with a group of people, you may face an even harder process that, quite frankly, may have some loopholes for trust and may set you up for loss. Paperwork can pile up. There's going to be fees that are going to be paid. And these records aren't really stored in a place that is secure, that can't be, lost, damaged, or again, fraud can be introduced into here. And that's the beauty of blockchain. And this is where we try to narrow down value and simplify it for where that value applies to what people are looking for. As a storage of assets, as an immutable ledger, blockchain literally flips that script. When you either tokenize an asset, or if an asset is tokenized, or if whatever's connected to that asset to represent authenticity, when you tokenize that, it really represents real ownership. It's a proof of ownership that's instant, it's borderless, it's transparent, and most importantly, it's immutable and stored on chain, where people know that no one can change it, and at any time, anyone can audit it. In most of these cases, with the technology that's being created on chain to tie these to RWAs, these tokens aren't just a copy of the asset. It's literally a claim to the asset itself. Again, recorded and verified on chain and using smart contracts to execute redemption. And I've seen a lot of different examples of this that I won't just ramble off and go into, but I'm talking about people are using tokenization from everything from baseball cards, I swear to you, in comic books, all the way up to, complete parcels, 100 acres, 500 acres of land, and $1 million domain names and everything in between. Art, all that good stuff. So again, breaking it down with something familiar, real estate is probably one of the easiest ways to kind of imagine this, or see where this has value. Imagine a downtown building that's worth like $10 million. With the current investment space, traditionally, only a few wealthy people or one big investor is able to come in and acquire that type of property, right? But with tokenization, that building can literally be represented by 10 million tokens. The same way as, if you own some Dogecoin, you essentially own a piece of whatever whatever size Dogecoin is, a couple $1 billion in net worth or whatever it is. But the point being is, by owning these tokens with these fractionalized assets, it makes it extremely accessible to more people to invest in. It actually can make something a lot more liquid, and can enable the person on the other end who is trying to sell said building for $10 million to be able to access that capital a lot quicker. There are a lot more people that have less than $10 million than there are people that do have $10 million, just in case you needed that math. So again, Now you open this access to people who are great people who may have initiatives that align with this building, such as a teacher or a college student or a small business owner, and you're opening, you're opening an accessible part of it to ownership to everyone. So again, fractionalization has many different ways that it can be set up and structured. You don't have to sell the whole thing at the same fraction. You can fractionalize part and sell, have part represented by 1,000,000 tokens. You can have part of an asset that's funded or co-owned by somebody who just, writes one check. The beautiful thing about the blockchain is that a lot of things can be split into 1,000,000 pieces. And because we have smart contracts and the technology behind it, these things are operating behind the scenes and they're all permissionless. So now, even moving forward from real estate, this same concept soon will translate to actual businesses, right? And this is what we're talking about as far as fundraising. Instead of selling stock the old way, startup can simply just issue on-chain tokens that represent equity or revenue share, or, in the case of a lot of tokens, it could be a community-powered, currency or something like that that's used, within the community for rewards or something like that, et cetera. Funding happens, of course, when you launch a token. This is something that happens instantaneously. You can go from no funding, right, or bootstrapped to fully liquid overnight if you've got the right hype on a project and you're on chain and you've built the right community and have the right, tokenomics and all that good stuff. Instead of a process that could take months or even longer, has a lot of red tape. You may, you're only able to open your doors to accredited investors. You yourself have to go through a process of a business in order to raise funding. Again, and not saying that you may still not have to do all those things. Please do not take the technology as legal advice. You may still need to register yourself as a legal entity and indicate in some way, form, or fashion in your jurisdiction that you're using some form or method to raise funding. But my point is that this funding is instantaneous. It's more accessible. It eliminates a lot of the red tapes, all the fees, and it's something that anyone can do. It's not just restricted to people who basically have access to whatever resources they're already doing. From anything from a small business to a corporation, you can use this to not only raise funding, but in the future, we think entire businesses and LLCs will also be tokenized and placed on chain as well. So you may even be able to exit your business on chain, or give people, again, actual equity instead of just a representation of it. And then, obviously, we have our digital native assets, such as domain names. And this is where where most of our conversation is centered over the past few weeks. For those of you who don't already know, Freename, which is the company that I partner with, and I am a customer service and success manager for, we have recently announced that we are launching a platform called Domora. And Domora works in tandem and utilizes our own tokenization technology that we have already with Freename that we call mirroring, which essentially allows you to bring over your .com to our registry, create an on-chain mirror that is then married or connected via smart contract and digital key to your, so you'll have the NFT version, and then you'll still have your Web 2 version. And then this copy, this digital receipt, this digital asset essentially represents ownership and can be used to do all those things that I just said, which is fundraise, transfer, sell, do whatever you want to with it, right? You own this, you own the NFT, essentially you own the domain. What Domora is going to do, of course, is it's going to take it a step further, and it's going to take this technology and put it in a user interface that people can actually utilize to fundraise or to fractionalize or to gain or extract liquidity for the domain. So this technology isn't just me saying it, right? It's not something that's a theory. There's going to be an actual platform, that's launching extremely soon, where you'll have the user interface that you'll be able to go in with a couple clicks and actually actualize this. And I mentioned Domora because Domora is related specifically to premium domain names, which is what I want to talk about next. So super premium.coms, right? Everyone wants to own, or have some sort of stake or ownership in the best .coms because, if you haven't been listening to the spaces over the past couple of years, best .coms are solid assets to park money into. The only problem with the best.coms is just like the problem we said above with premium real estate. If you don't have millions of dollars, a super.com, an AI.com, and anything like that of that nature is just not accessible to the average investor. And the problem is that what the average investor then does when they can't access that type of real estate is they hand register. And I'm guilty of that, right? I've built most of my Web2 domain portfolio from hand registering. And I can promise you that what I've hand registered is nowhere near the quality, but I'm not able to buy in the premium domain space. And many are going to find themselves in the position, and I'm in the same position, where I'd rather own a piece of something that I know has value, that I know will eventually increase in value potentially. Like, we're not promising that as a platform, but me doing my own due diligence on the .com itself, if I wasted, if I take the thousands of dollars that I wasted potentially on the hand registrations and I parked it in something else, like, again, we see narratives that are popping right now. So let's say you were able to, and this is just speculative. Let's say something like an AI.com was on the platform. You were able to purchase it when they listed it or fractionalized it at a $10 million value. Then let's say it sells for $100 million. That money is better well spent by having a fraction of a premium domain than it is by spending that money on, well, what's really my accessible asset class. So again, going back to Domora and going back to the point of bringing assets like this on chain, it makes it more accessible to more people who are out here who want to participate but can't. And if you're sitting on an asset or a domain that's worth millions of dollars, you're probably having a time selling it, right? You have to look for a specific person or group of people that have that type of money. You've got to do your song and dance and make that sale. You've got to communicate that value, and Lord knows how long that process takes. And again, to shorten that loop for everybody, bring it on chain, create an environment or create a UI where everyone can participate fractionally, where someone can now come with their $10 instead of having to come with 10 million. And trust me, there are a million of people that will line up if the opportunity is good enough. So bringing domains on chain, .coms, .ais, anything of value. Again, this is going to be a great way to add more participants in the space. This will be a great way to co-develop some of these assets as well. Who was it? Andrew Rosner recently did the same thing in a way. It wasn't on chain, but it was a fractional ownership opportunity that he did on MJ.com through a platform I believe he has interest in, which is called Rally Road. But in like a case like that, like an MJ.com, right? MJ can stand for literally anything, but I think most people come to the conclusion that it may stand for, that's icky icky. And despite that, how many people may feel about it, there is a huge community out there that loves that plant in a bunch of different ways. And something like an MJ.com may have value to a community like that may want to co-fund and co-build whatever concept or whatever it is that they have roadmap or vision towards the future. And being able to own things on chain, through platforms like the one that is about to be launched by Free Name, and creating things like DAOs where these tokens that you now own that represent ownership of this domain may potentially now represent votes and things like that. You essentially can crowdfund the domain and then now crowd build the domain with the same people and already have a DAO infrastructure behind it to manage everything in the back end. And this is literally the future of building. For those of us that are hearing it now, we exist in the now, but when others start to come on chain, when our kids grow up and start to get online and on chain and start building their business, this is all they'll know, and this will be the norm for them. And this is why we now have to start thinking builder to prepare, start thinking bigger to prepare ourselves, and quite frankly, to put ourselves in the path of success when this begins to happen. Again, when assets live on chain, if you've ever been a part of like an NFT launch or any type of token launch, it ain't. I don't know how businesses get launched in you hold a grand opening or something, but when these tokens, when you talk about the crypto space, the Web3 space, I've seen launch parties last for like 2 or 3 days on X Spaces where people are just giving away money. It's really a party. It's a vibe. They're playing music. When assets are on chain, funding and building can become really a community event. And now you're able to co-fund your projects globally with people who have never met you, but can trust that smart contract. They can trust what they can see on chain or on the blockchain because the blockchain works. And again, many people who are going to start coming to the space are only going to trust the blockchain because this is what they're going to learn. And you not being on chain is going to look how it looks. Now I wanted to dive a little bit into, and I want to dive in a little bit into trust, because I think this is a big part of it as well. And this is going back to the conversation that I had referenced earlier about, the techno.com thing. Not only is there a very, or can be, a very costly and legal process to even set yourself up, using traditional paperwork to be able to, essentially issue shares or issue co-ownership of your company or asset to someone. But then there's also this trust. I recently got to go out to Vegas and to the Ishmael's Domainer Expo, which is actually where I met the owner of Techno.com. And right after the expo, as I was in the airport, Ishmael had his spaces, and it was a very good spaces. And a lot of input came from traditional domainers. And of course, many of them who don't understand blockchain at all, of course, their first retort is, well, if you write a good enough contract, or, if you got the contract, essentially, you should be essentially able to do exactly what, fractionally or fractionalization is doing on chain, without having to use the blockchain. You could just do that. Why would anybody want to go on chain? And the point that I got to make there, and this is one of the biggest points that I think a lot of people miss about the blockchain, is trust. So even with a contract, right, you have the best contract in the world. Contracts still have to be enforced. So you need the money to create the contract to begin with. Then you get your parties in line with the contract. But if anyone breaches that contract, it's not like you could just walk over there and get whatever it is the remedy that's specified is for them breaching the contract. If per se, in a domain, right? If you have a piece of paper contract with your friends on a domain name, they own fractional ownership of it, and then you choose to go sell it from under them, or forget to renew it or something like that, how can they actually force you to execute any recourse? And again, and with the legal process, many times people, can exhaust themselves, in the pursuit of whatever the remedy or damages were for the agreement that they're in. What blockchain does is blockchain introduces this thing called smart contracts. And this was what was fun to explain during that space. But what a smart contract essentially does is you can program those exact same rules, the same rules that you would use to govern a real contract. You can put those rules into basically a blockchain executed contract. You can then take this asset. So this is where things need to be on chain. You take this asset that is now tied to this physical RWA, or to, in this case, this domain, and it sits within this smart contract. And any other sort of collateral or any other recourse that's agreed to, those things are pre-funded and are connected to the smart contract. And then if a breach happens, those things are then immediately executed, and that is the end of it. And this is the blockchain. The blockchain works on, if it does this, it does that. You can program immutable smart contracts that govern relationships so that you can remove trust from any of these interactions. And by doing so, you may be able to fix the problem that gentleman was having that we were discussing on the space, which is, although you may be able to go create your own paper contract, although you may be able to go do this without doing the blockchain, most people ain't gonna give you no money because they don't trust you. And you may only be limited to friends and family. And so again, for those who are saying, well, why would I even consider this opportunity? Why would I consider this tech? Well, you've got assets that you want to sell. It's your job to sell them. That's why you have them. And anything that's making it easier for you to do so is something that you should embrace. And if you're having trouble gaining liquidity and you're seeing that the blockchain has it, so it's just worth it for you to learn what it is. And again, it opens so many different doors. It creates so many different creative scenarios where you don't have to sell your entire domain to somebody. If you've got a domain, like for instance, I've got a few domains that I think are high value, like DeFi.build, right? They say never to fall in love with your names. I say don't tell me what to do. I love DeFi.build. I want to sell DeFi.build because I would like the money that it would make, or something like crypto.it.com. But when I first had these domains or first purchased these domains, I went through the same process as everybody else does, which is mentally taking ownership of it, thinking of how I could build this thing out and create this, huge entity with it. And I thought of the whole vision that it creates, because that's what a lot of us do with names. There aren't just names that we buy. They're actual business concepts that we came up with, and we just registered the name so that we won't forget it. Well, it would hurt a little bit. I mean, depending on how much somebody paid me for the domain, it would hurt a little bit to sell the entire thing and see basically that dream leave with that domain. The perfect name that matched whatever concept I came up with is gone. But what if you didn't have to sell the whole name? What if you could keep that small percentage, or even 50-50, 25-45, 73.77934, whatever it is? You can use any fractionalization amount, and you can still keep yourself attached to some of your best names while allowing the others who, may have the energy or time or the capital to invest to build it, by allowing them to do so. So I love the option of I love the concept of fractionalization. Again, I love the trust that blockchain adds, to these different asset classes, and making it, again, easier for people, everyday people, to fractionalize and raise funds basically for anything. I mean, it's still up to you to create value in it and make anybody want to give you money in the first place. But at least they know with the blockchain, they have something tangible that they can hold that represents ownership. And then they have that smart contract, which represents that trust, or which removes that trust. And then again, going to co-building, we talked a little bit about governance. We talked about, being able to, kind of co-manage these assets by using a DAO. That's a whole nother concept of the world that have to get used to, is, again, running entire businesses, or running entire, nonprofits, funds, joint ventures, all these things on chain, using, again, smart contracts, using token weights, using those type of things. And again, these technologies are meant to remove a lot of the burdens and a lot of the fraud that happens in the space that, and not just this space. I'm talking about the regular world. I mean, think of how many decisions are influenced. I mean, by people who are just big bag holders of anything. I mean, think of what lobbyists, what their job is to do. Most of us are living lives that are being dictated by other people. Most of us are buying products that are being dictated and voted on by other people, and we don't have a voice. But with DAOs, it doesn't matter. Even if you have the smallest token, you still get your bid in, and if enough of you make enough noise, you may be able to push it, towards whatever, direction, collectively is best for whatever that project, business, entity, fund, etc. is. So definitely do not sleep on DAOs, and tokenizing an asset is really all you need to do in order to subdivide it and create a DAO around any asset. So again, kind of in conclusion, this new way of owning things on chain, it's not a theory. It adds real practical value, and it's something that we're already seeing. I've mentioned, the first thing that I talk about is the value with real estate. Well, real estate is already being tokenized. Platform I can never remember it off the top of my head. Oh, Fabrica. There you go. See, it didn't take me 10 minutes. One platform out there, and you can go into your X and go right into the search bar and type in Fabrica, which is Fabrica. Their platform is extremely impressive, and there's going to be more models that find it. You're able, on at least the last time I used it, you're able to tokenize raw pieces of land. So essentially what you do on their platform is you'll type in your APN or ATN number. Every county, state's going to have a different identifying or property number. You'll type in that number. It'll look up the property. It'll create like a 3D mold, and it does some weird AI stuff where it's able to find images, or so. It's able to really it creates a sales page for you, a really comprehensive one. It'll assign a value to that property. You upload or you there's a way that you're able to verify, like doing a notary signature online. I forgot if I had to do. I know I had to do a face verification and all that kind of stuff. It was a little. It only took like 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, I was able to take a raw piece of land that I own, fully owned, and I was able to create an on-chain version of it, and then almost immediately got a loan offer on it that actually exceeded the amount that I had paid for the land, and was able to instantly pretty much cash out. This existed months ago. So Lord knows where we're at now, and more platforms and protocols will follow. Again, this isn't theory. This is real value that's being built, and it's not going to take much for everyone else to follow suit. Art, of course, we know is probably one of the most common use cases for RWAs and for tokenized representation. We call that AKA our NFTs. But these things are already being collected and authenticated on chain. And eventually you'll start seeing, and I think the major art houses are already using blockchain. So this is something that's already full in force. I think art was one of the first things that made sense. But now we're going to start talking about, again, deeds, titles, birth certificates, accomplishments, anything and everything that has value that can be faked, that needs to be either instantly authenticated or needs to be instantly liquidated, should be and will be on chain. With that being said, as you think about your next project or you think about your next acquisition, whether it be real estate, business, or even your next great domain or TLD, the first thing you should be asking yourself is, how can I bring this on chain? How can I let the people who believe in it own a piece of it? And again, us setting ourselves up for that now will prepare you for what is going to be the norm in the future. This is an easier way to invest, to make things accessible. There was a point that was being made. I know who made that point. It was Sweet Name that made that point on one of the Web3 Domain Whale Talks. This technology as it exists right now is wide open, and it's wide open because people don't understand it. And that's literally the perfect time to build, because you can build. It's literally the perfect time to explore because you can explore. If you have a small business or if you have assets that could benefit from being on chain, while this is wide open for everybody, take advantage of it, because there may be a time. And that time I'm saying may, if we look at history, anything that is wide open and that empowers people at some point gets limited by people who don't want you to have power. So not financial advice, but now, while you're part of basically the pioneer class that's discovering what bringing on chain is, you're first to the party. You're the first person to mint that Bored Ape. You're the first person to buy ETH. You're the first person to get Bitcoin at 3 cents right now. And that's the same thing that you should feel when you're buying any asset, is how can I bring this on chain? How can I put my domain on Domora? How can I be the first person to get my domain on Domora, so that I can be the first person to access that liquidity before, my government decides to shut down the way we can access Web3 and tries to keep me poor again. So with that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed this tech talk. Again, this will be available on every major podcast player in a few days. That's Apple, Spotify, iHeart Radio, everywhere that you can find it. You can easily get to that archive at techtalk.host, or you can get to any of our tech talks and a blog overview at iHeartDomains.com. Thank you guys as always. Focus on your mission, not your condition. Happy domaining. I will see you. Oh, we do got a request to speak. Let me go ahead and invite you up. Go for it, ECW, whenever your mic connects. GM, sir.
Thank you. This is fantastic. A great overview. And thank you. I did not know about Fabrica. So for all the stuff I'm interested on the virtual land and the digital representations of it, definitely I'm making a note of this, and I'm going to share this with a couple other people, either the space itself or once it's on the podcast sites. I'm just going to ask, when it comes to Domora for .coms, if there's one that happens to associate with a group of people, maybe 10, 15,000 people would resonate with the domain, nothing great. But I'll say low 5-figure, maybe mid 5-figure audience in terms of monthly search visits, with analytics and things like that. Is there any stuff with Domora yet that has shown how to put the .com on chain, tokenize it, and then either do the fractional ownerships of the .com and also potentially if there's a corresponding Web3 TLD that I own that would map into that as well. I just haven't, I'm still wrapping my head around the big picture of how to do it and and what the benefits are. Why would someone invest even $5 if I put in if I make 100,000 shares of or I say 100,000 shares, 100,000 tokens of a .com, and they're going to spend no more than $5 a token. Why would they do it, and what are the benefits versus just getting a corresponding thing on the TLD and token gating the content? If you could just help me with that, that'd be awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah. So was a general question like, why would somebody want to co-invest in a domain instead of what else would they buy in the
Yeah, or if I had a corresponding token gated community with private content there, or is it just where I'm going to be putting the content? Like if I token gated the content and then only the token holders of the Domora based .com tokenization could access that. That's one way versus putting it on a Web3 or like a Farcaster or something like that and doing it the other way. Or is there a way to kind of walk have a foot on both sides of the river, one on the Web2 tokenized side of the .com and a corresponding Web3 TLD that matches, and then providing content. Is there kind of a way to go simultaneously with both?
Yeah, I mean that just requires a little bit of creativity. So as far as like, can you go both ways? Like I just thought of an idea right now. Like, and shout out to Gal with techno.com. I'm just really like promoting this for you, ain't I? But take like techno.com, right? Like, let's say if or techno.ai, because that may likely end up on Domora. So take something like that, right? Um, it gets broken up into a billion shares, and there's a billion people out there that love techno. And so that ends up being the audience that somehow, some way finds Domora and fractionalize invests in it. Let's say you get people from everywhere, right? Um, now you and again, this is going to be dependent on how you raise, how you put it out there, how you market. It's going to be dependent on the platform and what you do after this, right? But if you put out like this basically the concept of you buy a piece of my domain via this mechanism, and you essentially are not only just an owner, but you're like a co-builder, and like I said, like you create a DAO behind this. Yeah, you those tokens, those fractionals that you own, they work the same as any other NFT or any other token. You would be able to token gate access not only to the DAO, but you'd be able to token gate access to literally anything that you then built on it. When you talk about tying them into the Web3 world, well, there's a couple ways you could do that. So uh, again, techno is a solid name, right? Could you issue subdomains? I guess. I don't know what the framework is to really do it like that scale on a .com or on a .ai. I don't know if there's something plug and play. You're able to just issue a bunch of subdomains out like that. But if you want to, and then of course you'd still have the issue of putting them on chain. But if you wanted to just issue pure Web3 digital identity that like people who like now co-invest or even people outside the community, can still feel like they're part of that domain or that community. Yeah, I mean, why not have a .techno TLD, and why not, maybe even give a discount for minting for people who hold the fractionalized domain, or give it to them for free. You can make it a benefit for because I mean you're still gonna have to market the launch. So however you feel like tying the two together, yeah, they marry hand in hand. I mean, that's essentially how we hope every business operates, is that they have their domain and then they have their TLD that they're now using for, either on-chain clubs or, like I said, we anything from cataloging and supply management to agent identity to community identity to whatever use case you need.
Okay, because then I was also going to ask you if you tokenize to say it was just a normal .com. Technically, if that's what you're investing in is the .com, which then potentially say you could build a DApp. If I'm the investor and I'm just going to make a fictional thing, I'm going to do 100,000 at $10 a piece, right? So it's $1 million domain, just for conversation. What also have they been seeing? I know it's really early to have a good best practices, but also what do you think is going to start to generate secondary market demand so that people would want to come in, and those shares would, I say those tokens would go, say, from $10 to 12 to 15 to 20, so that people feel like they've doubled their money and they actually have, I just don't know the right way to go about it, because are they buying just the .com, which,
I
say
get
I
what
have
you're
yeah, I just want to make sure I'm thinking correctly, so I'm doing this right as I start mapping out the strategy. And thank you for all this. This is
saying.
really awesome.
No, that's a real solid question, and it's one that many have asked. Um, I mean, the bottom line is going to be market perception, and the real actual value of the asset. So, just like anything else, right? If you tokenize, pretty much like we'll just stick with domains. We'll keep this like real simple and keep it in this lane. So you take a domain name, right? You take like AI.com, right? AI.com probably for the consensus for anyone is that AI.com has value. I don't think if you said AI.com out loud in a room that anyone would think that they could get that for free. I don't think that anybody would say you should drop that or that that's trash. I think most people would think that they're looking at a rich person. So there's consensus and actual value, and then there's transactional value behind that name, right? It's moved hands a few times. There's been millions of dollars. When you put a value on that name, there's research that you can do to then solidify or validate if that is in fact worth that value or if it can increase from there. And the TLDR is basically you need to do your research. Because going back, so on the other end, right? If it's a domain that like I hand registered that has no history, it's likely not going to receive kind of that same response or be invested in at all in the same way as a domain, as something like an AI.com. So to answer your question, are they just buying the .com? That's all we're facilitating the ability to do with Domora, right? We're not in the help you make money game. We're in the create the technology, understand the technology, utilize the technology to build, co-own, and then what happens. But for some of these things, like again, but my point going back is like with an AI.com, if you saw AI.com get listed on, let's say, a Domora today for $10 million, and you were able to own a fraction today for $10 million, while every piece of evidence out there in the world says that it's worth $50 million, you can kind of guesstimate at some point that you might be able to 5x your money if they sell that domain, because there's evidence that supports that. And that's the process most people are going to have to go through.
Okay, because I was also going back to the Rosner formula, and I know it's changed with Google and AI overview, but typically if we did buy a .com, of course, there's the entire business model behind it, the perception, brand equity, things like that. But also, if you're able to somehow or other acquire those quality links pointing back to your website and at least raising the SEO value of it, so even a hand reg like yours, which say you got for $10, and you're going to slap a value and you'd love to have of 100,000 on, abcsanantonio.io or something like that, no one would perceive to have any value. But if you built up enough links pointing to you from all these San Antonio websites, you now have a domain authority or domain rank in Ahrefs of like a 42 or something, and now that could have value. But typically that's sold on a one-off transaction through a third-party marketplace like Flippa or some other GoDaddy auctions or something like that, because they're buying the SEO value. But are you saying that it's possible now to sell that same thing, but people who understand, say, SEO and understand that the increased domain rank or authority that's kind of hidden there with expired domains that in theory, hand reg, but it might have a history and has some good backlink history, you could actually monetize that and make a multiple pretty quickly? Is that theoretically possible?
Yeah, that would be. I mean, it's
Oh,
theoretically possible. There's
so
going
it's
to be,
so
and
instead of
that's
trying
what
to, I was just saying, so therefore, if SEO professionals or people who understand local marketing, they all want a piece of the action, then they could jump in and become an equity, let's say an equity owner, in essence, a token holder of a hand reg, like you said, like that, because you built up the authority of it, and then they would have a DAO or something behind it, and you could monetize it however you want, sell it off. But then when the .com is sold, then the tokens get transferred. Hopefully, they see a good return on their investment. Is that the right way to look at this?
that's literally exactly how it works.
Thanks, man. Thanks for clearing my head. It's been a long day, so awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that's why I love having these conversations, and this is why we call it Tech Talk, because there's so much potential, and there's so many areas that, again, blockchain technology, NFTs, all this stuff, there's so many areas that it fits in that it's just impossible to sometimes cover any of it in a conversation. When I have conversations with regular people, Sometimes I can't even get past crypto's Bitcoin. Um, and so having these type of conversations again to deep dive into all these little corners to make it make sense. This is I feel like this is a big necessity, education. And I'm going to wrap up one more time, but I'm going to wrap up again with reminding you guys that yes, education is key. And in our case, education is free. Anyone that you want to teach the basics of blockchain, Web3 digital identity, NFTs, DAOs, all that good stuff, please send them on over to learnweb3.xyz. They can sign up for free. It is an 8-module course. We also have a community. We also have like a community in the background, a community. It's both a community chat with events, all kinds of stuff that we're able to set up. I'm going to get more active in there again as students start coming in there. We actually have over 24 students in the community currently. So not bad so far. But yeah, invite anyone to join the course. Then they can join the community. Posting various different job postings each week for anybody who's looking for a new career in Web3. Obviously, a prerequisite if you're looking for a career in Web3 might be that you know something about Web3. So hopefully you see the connection, take the course, get the borderline or baseline experience that at least can get you to the point where you can apply for that job. Learnweb3.xyz. And again, thank you guys for attending our tech talk. Thank you, especially to ECW, hopping up on stage with that great question. And yeah, I'll see you guys next. See you guys in a couple weeks. Again, we used to do these weekly. Now I'm kind of doing it more on the relevance of the subject itself. Again, tokenization RWAs was a very hot topic coming back from Vegas. It's it's right on the heels of what we're about to launch with Domora. So it's something that you're going to see a lot more of, especially if you're connected to our ecosystem. But I think you're going to see a lot more of it everywhere, and it will become the norm. But yeah, that being, you have anything you want to end with, ECW?
No, I was just going to say thank you. This was fantastic. I'm heading out in a little bit to run there, and I'm going to be listening to the replay. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And again, hope you guys all have a great weekend. Happy Friday and happy debating. Talk to you guys when I see you next.